Hello, welcome to WD18, the Watford fan channel. Welcome to a video that I think, we all expected to happen after yesterday's performance away at Leeds. We know how ruthless Gino Pozzo, Scott Duxbury and Cristiano Gioretta are, and they have done it. They have sacked Xisco Munoz after 7 Premier League games. We're going to be discussing all of that and the man to follow in his footsteps. There's been a turnover of managers at Watford, and that has continued today. Xisco Munoz relieved of his duties this morning, with Claudio Ranieri set to be the new Watford head coach. Let us know your thoughts on that and the sacking in the live chat below. But to discuss all of that is regulars here on WD18. Mr. Sam Yuko, Mr. Hornet Shane. Sam, first off, new setup. It's the first video new at uni, and it's a managerial sacking. I think that is probably the most Watford thing.
It's probably the most Watfordy thing I can think of, and you know, it's annoying because you go, when people ask you, what team do you support, they just go, you go for a lot of managers, don't you? And then I'm a wee kid, and all of a sudden I'm having to defend the football club again. So do you know what? I think it's expected after yesterday's performance. I think, whoever was at the game, I saw Shane on the way out, I saw Shane at half time, and we were all going, this can't go on ultimately. I was trying so hard to back Xisco. I love the guy, but I think it became very clear how out of his depth he was. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next, but never a quiet day supporting Watford.
Never a quiet day. And look, Sam makes an interesting point about kind of other fans and pundits. As we know, when Watford sack a manager, you can bet a tweet from Gary Lineker, Michael Owen. We haven't had one from Jake Humphrey yet, which is a surprise. But I was just
he can't talk, can he?
Hey, I swear, did you see after we beat Norwich, it was something like, oh yeah, we played Watford off the park today. We literally battered them 3-1.
Not sure where that would, Jake. I was just saying to the lads before we went on the show, I was on the Football Daily podcast on 5 Live, and it was really interesting to hear the narrative from people maybe outside of the Watford fan base and the football club in terms of how they view the football club and also how they view the managerial changes. So what I would say is have a listen to that to hear the different perspectives. But Shano, you were at Leeds yesterday. Was it a good day despite the result, despite the performance, or was it not?
Well, look, listen, I saw Sam's tweet later on in the evening. The best thing he had on the day was a prep cookie. I raised a prep cookie, and I raised it against a proper banging KFC on the way home. That was the highlight of my entire day. Do you want to know why? Do you want to know why it was good, right? Because I'll be honest with you, okay? When I saw Watford come out onto the pitch, play 90 minutes of football, I was unconvinced. There was very little there. When I had the KFC in my mouth, there was something there. Some spice, some flavour. It was there. It was all there. You know what I mean? It was the perfect meal. Wasn't it amazing?
Wait, what, are we talking bonus banquet? Are we talking big?
Oh, mate. Yeah. No, so I usually go for the banquet for one. So I was starving, mate. I was absolutely ravaged, and it was a horrible day. You know, raining and all that, and that played a part. I think within the overall kind of thing. I posed a question to my fellow Watford podcast, the Voices of the Vic, as they're asking questions for their upcoming podcast. And the question I asked was Leeds one of the worst away day concourses? Anyone that was there yesterday? Oh, Jesus. I mean, I know so many fans that turned up there and couldn't get a pint, couldn't get anything to drink. The lines, the queues were terrible. It looked like a conference room. It looked like we were all waiting to go into like a lecture or something. Like it was dreadful. They haven't changed that in several years, I'm telling you. But
it was me and Shane were stood in the corner going,
yeah.
Watford about to play here. Like we were like, it was. We've done these videos so many times now where Watford managers are being sacked that we might as well just talk about what we ate yesterday instead.
All I needed yesterday was a rucksack on my back, and I was back at uni. I'm telling you, like, seriously, like lecture notes and stuff. I'm serious. Madness. But you know what? Listen, look, we are laughing. We're very jovial about it. There was nothing funny about the performance yesterday. There really wasn't.
Just to jump in, look, we've got to get straight to it. But
yeah,
we'll talk about Leeds a little bit later on the show. But Sam, just on Xisco Munoz, what was your initial reaction to the news? Were you surprised?
No, absolutely not. I don't think you can be surprised anyway. I think coming off that halftime performance yesterday, I said that even if we won the game 1-2-1 and turned it around, I still think they would have sacked him based off that first half performance. Look, my initial feelings towards Xisco, I'm incredibly grateful. At the same time, I think it's become increasingly apparent that we got promoted not because of coaching, but because of we had better players ultimately, and it was just applying players in their correct position. Not playing Hughesy at left mid and playing him centre mid instead. I don't think it was helped by certain contract situations in the summer, and the general restraints of what's going on in the world at the moment impacting on the transfer market. However, I just think he was out of his depth. In hindsight, you probably say that we should have made that change in the summer, but it is what it is now. Grateful to Xisco Munoz. He's always welcome back at Vicarage Road. I put a tweet out saying, and I stand by this, that when he gets more experience, learns about the game a bit more and develops his tactics, I think he'll go on still to be a top manager. He has half of it in terms of the man management. He just needs to grow tactically. So no doubt he'll go on to bigger and better things, and best of luck to him.
Shano, Xisco, look, watching the game from afar yesterday, it was an absolutely shocking performance. I thought we were abject against Newcastle, but Leeds, it went to another level in terms of how bad it was. Shane, I ask a similar question to you. I mean, I think we all kind of expected him to go. Were you the same after that game yesterday?
Yeah, and we spoke about it, didn't we, last week? We said, a poor performance against Leeds, would anyone be surprised if the Potters pulled the trigger? The answer, no, because it has happened, and it was a bad performance, and we did lose the game. But bad is a very soft word. There are many different words for the word, or different words that you could use instead of the word bad. Abject is one of them. Downright disappointing is the other, and I am keeping it clean, so we'll just go as far as that for now. To be honest with you, it was dreadful yesterday. It really, really was. I wasn't massively surprised when I found out the news this morning. I was in a similar position to where I was when I found out that Marco Silva had been sacked. I woke up in the morning, nothing was there, went off for a shower, came back again, and he was sacked. So it was literally again in that order when Silva was thinking. I got back into my room, opened the phone, the tweet had come through already, and I'd expected it because we were dreadful yesterday. Nothing against Xisco. Look, he's a lovely guy. A lot of people have said this. He's a great guy. I did send out a tweet earlier. He needs to keep on smiling. His positivity, it's infectious. His smile could light up any room, any stadium, up and down the country and around the world. He is great. I just feel like the last couple of matches, we can talk about the players as much as we want to, but from a managerial point of view, things haven't been right. The right decisions, the right calls, I think they were lacking. Some people thought last week against Newcastle the subs were great. I thought they were poor. I think just yesterday, watching the game, aside from our performance, I felt that there was just some sort of malaise around the team. I felt like something was a bit off. I felt like the attitude of some of the players was maybe a little bit down. It didn't feel like they were kind of up for it, really. And perhaps they were swallowed up by the atmosphere there yesterday at Ellen Road, which was ferocious, frankly, at times. So, but that's not an excuse. On the Xisco front, we knew this was coming. And I had a feeling on the way back yesterday that if we were to see a tweet 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock the following morning, wouldn't be such a surprise. The reaction is the reaction. We always get the reaction. And, pundits will have their say. Other fans will have their say. But at the end of the day, from what I've seen, the vast majority of Watford fans agree with the decision. The reason they agree with the decision, potentially off the back of the Newcastle game, they maybe didn't necessarily feel as though a change was needed. I think a lot of fans either were at Ellen Road yesterday, saw the game, listened to the game, followed it on Sky or whatever. They realised, I think after yesterday, a change is needed because we were diabolical. I've seen some fans, I think Sam and I have kind of spoken about it, was it one of the worst performances under the Pozzos? Quite possibly. We were dreadful yesterday, really were. The VAR, there was a disallowed goal in the game and all that. That wouldn't have made a difference. I think, frankly, we didn't deserve anything yesterday. But Xisco leaves for me with a big smile on his face. I'll always be grateful. He turned things around for us last season. There was a huge pivotal moment that things could easily have gone wrong for us. He was possibly even a game away last season from getting the sack. Turned around our fortunes. He got us promoted. The scenes of him being lifted up in the air by all the players. That will live long in his memory, and ultimately very grateful for him to have been here. But as one door closes, another one opens at Watford, and we're so used to this. Come on, we've been on this channel now for long enough. This is I don't know how many. I don't know the number of managers now that we're seeing goodbye and saying hello again to. You know, he's very much.
What is it? It's Marco Silva, Javi Gracia,
yeah,
Kike Flores.
Yeah,
I think the stat I saw is 17 in the last 10 years.
Yeah, that's
ridiculous.
Right,
must be about 8 or 9 since the channel started.
I think so. Yeah.
There was a stat I saw. Let me just get it up. So before I get that stat up, Sam, what I wanted to ask you was in terms of the Watford have got 7 points from 7 games. We've played one of the top 4 in Brighton, one of the big 6 in terms of Spurs. So what do you say to the pundits and the journalists out there who don't understand the decision? Can you maybe explain to people who might not be Watford fans watching this or don't agree with the decision that you agree with, why this has happened, in your opinion?
Look, I think as Watford fans, I think the main thing is we have to trust the Pozzos at this point. I think obviously there were question marks when we got relegated, particularly with the amount of managerial changes we went through that season. But on the whole, we can't deny that it has worked. We got promoted with 4 or 5 managers in one season. We stayed in the Premier League for 5 years with kind of this hire and fire sort of strategy. So we have to say that it has worked in the past and we're relying on it working again. What I would say to pundits, though, is that while our points and our position in the table do look good, I don't think that reflects the performances. Because I think we can all say now, in hindsight, that while we were buzzing after that Villa game, yes, we played well, but was it more because Villa were bad? Most probably we caught Villa off on an off day. Brighton, abject. Tottenham, really poor that day where we should have probably beaten them. As we say, Newcastle, Wolves, really, really poor. So I don't think our league position reflects how we've actually played so far this season. And I think with the run of fixtures we've got coming up, we're only looking downwards, I think, to be honest, if we stayed with Xisco Munoz. And while that sounds harsh, arguably, and that's nothing against Xisco, I think we've seen that these players do work off these new managerial bounces sort of things. I remember, Javi Gracia comes in, we beat Chelsea 4-1. Nigel Pearson, we beat Man United straight away pretty much. Kike, we drew with Arsenal 2-2. With the run of fixtures we've got coming up, it's more important than ever that we kind of get some sort of, patterns of play together, some sort of momentum going. And there's no better place to start getting a big scalp than Liverpool at home. And I think that's why they've done it, particularly with the international break now. So I don't think it's surprising at all. I think I'll say it honestly. I know I'm not qualified, but I think it's a real lack of education from pundits that, the amount that we changed our managers, you think they'd actually done their research now after all these years, but seemingly not. Is what it is. We know the backlash we get from the media from this. The Pozzos know what they're going to get from this. So, and I'm sure we'll be sat here again very soon.
Shane, I just wanted to cast your mind back to last week. We discussed it on the show, and there was a few comments in the comment section, which I really do appreciate to everyone who got involved that day and tonight as well. And if you want to stay involved with the conversation, leave your comments in the live chat and like and subscribe to the channel as well. Shane, you mentioned it last week and you were very clear that, look, if we put in an abject display, as we did against Leeds, Xisco's time was rapidly coming to an end at Watford Football Club. So one thing I want to ask you is, there was a big decline after the Aston Villa game in terms of performances. There was a real bounce. The energy inside Vicarage Road that day was unbelievable. One of the best I've experienced in recent times. But there was a big drop-off. So should we have given Xisco a chance in the Premier League? Because we didn't do that with Slaviša Kanovic after we got promoted. Or do you think it's the Pozzos and the club did the right decision in keeping him on at the start of the season for the first 7 games? I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but would you have actually brought in a new manager like we did in that 15-16 season with Flores?
I think it's a really interesting one, and you nicked a phrase that I was going to start off with, which is hindsight is a wonderful thing. And I think it absolutely is, isn't it? Because, look, I think the things around Slav, I think were a bit different from what I read at the time and from what from my just general understanding was I don't think he actually agreed a contract with the Pozzos. I think there was a bit of a falling out there. And, I think whilst Slav very grateful for his time at Watford, I think things landed on a bit of a sour note potentially with the Pozzos. I don't think they managed to see eye to eye on a new contract. I don't think it was results. But look, hindsight, as I say, is a wonderful thing. Would I have pulled the trigger on Xisco in the summer? I don't know. I don't know because look, I think things were quite different back then. I think look, first of all, I think what hasn't helped Xisco, we talk about the Villa game specifically. A lot of fans, in fact, all fans, weren't there last season to see his great form, to see him in front of a packed Vicarage Road leading us to promotion. Would that have still happened if there were fans there? Yes, maybe, no, we don't know. But the fact of the matter is we did get promoted last season. The fact of the matter is when the time came, we performed in those big games at the Vic. Right, a 3-0 win against Birmingham City instantly springs to mind, a game that we were just so class throughout. And imagine having that, being at the Vic, experiencing that, a typical game at Vicarage Road. That would have been brilliant. And I know from experience from all of that, being a part of a promotion season, we all know it. We've all been there. It's one of the best feelings. I think Xisco hasn't necessarily had that, and I think, despite the fact that things are kind of come to a sour end for him, I think that's one thing that I personally would like to have had, for us to have been there last season, to have experienced it. And therefore, first game of the season against Villa, it was always going to be different, right? Our first game back, the Vic was packed, it was a beautiful day, and I feel like the players for a normal game would have been about down here. I think for that game, they were all up there. They were all up for it. First game back in front of crowds. So many of the players have referenced what it was like without crowds there. Certain players, I think, just overextended themselves slightly, specifically Juraj Kučka, who, as much as I loved against Villa, the last set of matches, including yesterday, I thought it was absolutely atrocious, to be quite honest with you. And I'll go as far as to say that. I mean, oh, God, it was a painful, painful display yesterday from him and from others as well. I'm not just singling him out, but just specifically off the back of the Villa game. That was all very different. But it was one of those, wasn't it? With Xisco this season, we kind of knew, I think, in the back of our minds that whilst he's done really well in the Championship, will his inexperience, will it trip him up in the Premier League? And I think it has, hasn't it? I think we've been, I hate to say this as well, we have been outclassed by managers this season, but it's not been like over the top by way of how they've outclassed us. It's been very, very simple things, very, very, just very obvious. Like yesterday, for example.
I think just on that, Shane, just on that, I think it's a matter of time before you're going to get absolutely battered. I think if we kept Xisco for the Liverpool game, it could have been 5-6-0.
Yeah, it could have been. It could have been. And judging by Liverpool's performance today, they look pretty neat on the attack as well, don't they? I mean, we can't really complain about that. I mean, they were insane today, but it was that worry. And I feel like even though we all started the season off with, I hate to say this, good vibes and, Sweet Caroline and all that, which we all love, by the way. Everyone was looking in that November period, weren't they? November, December period, will Xisco be there for that? What's it going to be like there? He's not coached at the top division before. I feel like the Pozzos almost were like, right, we need to give this guy a go, specifically because the squad was in such a great position. The players really bought into him. The number of ex-players today, not ex-players, the number of players in the squad today that have come out, that have given like their messages and so on social media. I don't really know. Obviously, I don't track it for every single manager, but I think it's been one of the most that I've seen, like to Klevs, Messina, Kiko, Sirialta, 4 or 5 pretty senior players. I mean, for Klevs to come out and say something like that in his new role as captain, certain, for example, I cast my mind back to Troy. I don't think he did that for very many managers, except maybe a couple, possibly, maybe Zola. I don't even know if he was on social media back then, but that's another conversation. But, I feel like as much as we like to see the happiness of the players and all of that, something was really lacking yesterday. I felt like something had changed a little bit. And with Xisco, he had a very, as I said to you, Jacob, last week, it was smiling in front of the camera, smiling in front of the media. I think behind the scenes, he was very, very ruthless. He was pointing out certain players, right? I don't like you. I don't really favour you, and I don't really like you. Ben Wilmot being one of them. He's now gone off to better things at Stoke, right? And
I think Cucho Hernandez is another one, I think.
Cucho Hernandez as well. We look at Cucho. I felt as though after the Villa game, he definitely deserves a start. What more does he have to do to get a start? Has he started a game since? No. What's happened there? It's not like he came on against Villa, dropped an absolute disaster class, and he scored a goal like within 30 seconds of coming onto the pitch. And I feel like some of that alienation, I think once is fine. A couple of players, okay, fine. But I think with the Sirialta thing as well, the Backman thing, I saw Backman last week. He looked perfectly fine. He didn't look injured to me. He winked at me, which was a great moment. But again, looking at some of those decisions that he made, all of that after a while just keeps on digging and digging and digging and digging and digging until, you know what, fans realise, or not so much fans, but the players realise that actually I'm not really favoured here. Do you know what? I'm not really preferred here. I'm not really in the manager's thoughts. Prime example of that is Jeremy Ngakia up against Craig Cathcart. Cathcart still being picked for games. I just didn't understand it really. It's the whole elder statesman kind of thing there as well. But in hindsight, I don't think Xisco necessarily should have been given this season. He has been given this season. That's now all in the past. We have to get this appointment right. I think we are going to get this appointment right. I have a lot of faith in Claudio Ranieri because we're not going down the Xisco Munoz kind of route of someone who's unproven, someone who doesn't know the division. Claudio Ranieri knows this division. You know, he's won this division. You know, we'll remember it.
Shano, to jump in there, I think it's a really interesting point you brought up about Ranieri. Sam, I wanted to bring you in there on Claudio. Look, I think it's fair to say under the Pozzo era, he's probably the most coveted head coach we've had in terms of what he's won. Yeah. The only manager that's won the Premier League as well, obviously 15-16 at Leicester. Sam, it looks increasingly likely as time goes on that he will be joining Watford as our new head coach. What's your take on it? Do you think that's a good appointment for us?
I'd say as well. I mean, as you say, probably one of the most coveted we've had, but he's been mentioned in the conversation so many times. I feel like since he left Leicester, whenever we've had the managerial changes, names come up in the conversation. So I always felt like it was a matter of time before Ranieri would come to Watford, and I'm sure he's got some sort of relationship with the Pozzos due to the Italian link, that sort of thing. There are a few things that really interest me in terms of the Ranieri appointment. One is, I don't know if in terms of the thought process that they looked at kind of the early part, the pre-COVID sort of situation we had under Nigel Pearson, when we kind of, he took what he had at Leicester, kind of put it into this Watford side and kind of allowed us to grow through that until the pandemic obviously happened and we got relegated. So I don't know if because, you know, they saw that work with Nigel Pearson at Leicester, work with Ranieri at Leicester, perhaps they're going to look at it like that. But look, I think just an area that we haven't really spoken about today before we go in depth on Ranieri is the players, about how much responsibility they take in here. And it's a bit of an unpopular opinion, this, I think, because I've normally been one to really go onto the players' backs. When Vladimirovic was sacked, I thought the players were culpable. But I actually think here in this situation, I think obviously the players could be doing better. They could be playing much better. But I think in this case, it's more down to mismanagement, probably poor coaching as well, more than anything else. I think square pegs and round holes, lack of selection. You know, we've got no idea who our best goalkeeper is. We've got no idea who our best centre-backs are. No idea who plays midfield. No idea who the front three are. So I think that's a massive problem. And I think that's an area that he has to address, first of all, when he comes in. So I think we will see a switch to the 4-4-2 now from this point. I think what he implemented at Leicester. I think hopefully Josh King is fit, because I think that will suit him really well. I could see Josh King and Dennis playing through the middle for us now. I could see someone like Ken Sema coming back into the fold now as well. That's a whole conversation for another video, but really doesn't surprise me that it's happened. And yeah, I hope it works out.
Shane, I'll throw this question from Charlie over to you. Are you boys happy with the potential appointment of Ranieri, or would you have preferred a younger head coach like Diego Martinez, the former Granada manager, Eddie Howe, or Chris Wilder? Shane, what do you make of that?
I think those three names are really interesting as well. For me, look, Diego Martinez, for me personally, he was just a name. I didn't really know too much about him. I know that he was quite highly favoured by a lot of our supporters and all of that. I feel like Ranieri is a really, really interesting one, because I just feel as though with him, and I think the reason why we've gone down this route, obviously we know the fact that he's proven, we know the fact that he's experienced. I just think he's someone that's going to come in, connect with a lot of our players, but also actually he commands a level of respect, I think, instantly. That's not to say those other three don't. I just feel like we know what this guy's achieved. We know that, you know, listen, look, he took that Leicester City side, you know, he made Wes Morgan into an absolute beast and everything. And, you know, that does often get overlooked in my mind anyway, because every time I saw Wes Morgan, it was in a Nottingham Forest shirt, and, you know, he wasn't a beast. So, you know, aside from all of that, though, he transformed the careers of so many of those players in that Leicester City side, right? You know, let's just have it straight now, because, and I feel like there is that level of respect there, and it's interesting. Sam does talk about that 4-4-2 kind of formation, and it was a worry to see Josh King limp off yesterday. I hope we haven't done a Tom Delibashiri with him and brought him back onto the pitch. He did not look good. It looked pretty serious. I mean, and he went down and he had a face that looked like, nah, I ain't bouncing back anytime soon, kind of thing. That is a worry for him. For me, we talk about Xisco. He didn't know his best team. Ranieri, I think, has got 2.5 weeks now to look at this team and think, right, who have I got here? And more importantly, who are the main starters here? Who am I going to place my trust in? Right? I feel like there was too much chopping and changing with Xisco, and some things didn't work out. For example, I take a prime example yesterday. Josh King gets injured. I'm not too sure why we bring on Ken Sema in that situation, given I saw João Pedro warming up. João Pedro then runs off down the tunnel, I was thinking, okay, well, he's gone to go and get something because he's about to come on. Then Ken Sema comes on. João Pedro comes back and he looks slightly forlorn because I was sitting on the side quite close to the manager's kind of dugout area, and I looked over and I was like, okay, well, that's a bit strange. João ultimately came on, and I thought he actually had a really good game, but very bright.
He was really good. His first name. I've said this already. I don't know how much. The thing is, but the only downside to the 4-4-2 that I can think of now off the top of my head is that I don't know where João fits into this.
Yeah.
But for me, if it was a 4-3-3, he's the first name on the team sheet with Ismail Assar.
I feel like though with João, you could maybe put him on the left-hand side. I know we tried that in the Prem, the last time. I feel like that's the only way in which that's going to work, unless Josh King's out for a long time. Then do we maybe gamble up front? Do we maybe stick him and Emmanuel Dennis up front, for example? I felt like at times as well yesterday, we were kind of clearing the ball out there. There was no out ball. Dennis was up there on his own sometimes. It's completely, Leeds' two centre-backs had him on just absolute toast all game long. And they didn't need to do anything. Meslier didn't have anything to do. You could have sat there and read the Saturday newspaper for the entirety of the game. He had absolutely nothing to do except for that fumble. And that fumble was why? Because he was cold. That's why, because he's not really been tested in the entirety of the game. But that's a really interesting question there. Eddie Howe was somebody, again, who we've kind of heard in and around, kind of like the Watford chat conversation. I feel like Eddie Howe's waiting for a bigger appointment. I think that would have been potentially at Celtic. That's not to say Watford aren't a big club. I think we are one of the biggest clubs in the world, obviously.
Yeah.
But, I feel like Eddie Howe's waiting for like a much bigger appointment in that respect. I don't know too much really about like Chris Wilder and his kind of like ambitions and all of that sort of thing. And I think for him, it would have been a bit different. But Ranieri is one that we've heard linked. We've also heard a former Leicester City gang, Claude Puel's name always seems to come up in all the betting odds every time I see it, which is always a really funny one. And then I start crying when I realise it might actually happen. But
Lou Orton's in the comment section. Ranieri, he thinks Ranieri will just be for this season, and then next season we'll have a more progressive head coach. It's really interesting. But Sam, this is
sorry. I just wanted to say, I think the reason I don't think we see the likes of Eddie Howe or Chris Wilder come in is because they have such a style of playing and identity within their football, and they'd want to oversee longer projects. I think we've tried that. I think we tried that with Vladimir Ivic. I think Ivic would have been, probably in the minds of the Pozzos, a 3 or 4 year sort of plan to sort of build something and build a style of playing and ethos. But I don't think that we're really the club to do that. I think we're very much, we go off new manager bounces. I think it's become very clear. And when it goes sour in the dressing room, I think it goes very sour in the dressing room.
Do you think we'll ever see a long-term project, Sam?
I don't think under the Pozzos, but I don't think at the same time that's a problem. And I think that's where the sort of the media really misunderstand where we come from, because I feel like it's worked for us. So why change it? As I said, the only season it didn't work was because of the relegation season. And, that's sort of a lot of circumstances in there. What if Delafay does get injured? What if there's no global pandemic? So I think we have to take that season out of our minds. And on the whole, it has really worked. So I don't see why we need to look at a manager who has a long-term project when we've done completely fine so far with the Pozzos without doing that.
Great question from Jamie in the comment section. What is an acceptable number of points for the new manager, which is looking increasingly likely that's Claudio Ranieri, to pick up over the next 8 games? Now, before I throw that over to Shano, these are Watford's next 8 games. So after the international break, we've got 2 weeks off where we'll have the new manager, a new manager in the dugout. I had that pause because I was just looking through the pictures going,
yeah,
give it a hospital pass. First game, Liverpool at home, Everton away, Southampton at home, Arsenal away, Manchester United at home, Leicester away, Chelsea at home, Manchester City at home. That takes us up to 4. When I read those fixtures out, Shano, how many points is acceptable for Claudio Ranieri when he comes into the Watford post?
I just thought I'd say that for every game in this next 8 season, like in this next 8 game run, I'll just start every game by shouting "dilly ding dilly dong," really, and everything will be fine. So
yeah,
I just thought that, mate. Do you know what? Honestly, look, yesterday when I was looking back at some of those fixtures, I was kind of thinking about it, and I thought I'm quite low on confidence, but you never know. And Sam's spoken about it. The whole new manager bounce. It's something that we've benefited from before. Nigel Pearson put in a great performance against Liverpool at Anfield. We then go on to beat Man United. We then go on to beat Liverpool later on in the season. Beat Villa, beat Wolves. We had a great Christmas that time around. Oh God, it is quite difficult for me. I feel like I'm going to take this quite slowly. I will say maybe 5 points, possibly. I'm going to be very realistic about that, right? The fact that we've changed head coach doesn't change the magnitude of the teams that we're facing. It's not going to change how great the likes of Chelsea have been, how great the likes of Man United are, how unbelievably Man City have been playing, Liverpool as well in particular. Liverpool don't tend to fare very well at Vicarage Road. I'm sure that will not be in their minds when they turn up, and I'm sure it will be a tough game, but I feel like the big reason why this change has been made is because he has 2 weeks in an international break to plug in his ethos, what he wants to see from this team, drill those players well, and gives us the very best opportunity in these next couple of months. I feel like I said it even when Xisco was in charge, whoever comes in now, that game against Southampton at the end of October is absolutely crucial. Again, the head coach is gone. Our situation hasn't changed. Right, we're still in the position that we're in. We still need to pick up the points where we can. And for me, I look at the next 3 games-ish. Southampton at home is the big one. Everton away. All right, let's kind of see what happens there. But as the saying goes, the mantra is always there, isn't it? Win your home games, draw your away games. If we can try and do that, if we can try and get a few more draws maybe potentially on the board and win the winnable home games. I'm talking about Southampton at home is the prime one for me. And as I said in a couple of videos ago, which I'm sure a lot of fans will pick up on at some point, is that I was very much banging the drum ahead of those November games. Let's be quite clear: we shouldn't fear any team in this division. We've been here before. We spent 5 seasons in the Premier League. Absolutely, we have done. But we shouldn't be fearing we shouldn't be fearing any opposition that we come up against. Yeah, we've got teams in there that we don't have great records against, but on our day, we can beat anyone. We've beaten a lot of the sides that we're going to play in the month of October and November. We have beaten them before. And in some cases, those big sides inside the established top 6, we've beaten some of them very comfortably in previous seasons. So let's not be worried about that. Let's give whoever comes in, and it is looking increasingly likely now as if it is Claudio Ranieri. It's the same thing we did with Xisco when we're all at home. Anyone who sits in that dugout, you get behind him, you support him 100%. You sing the chants that I'm sure will be imported. I'm sure I'm going to get a message from a Leicester City fan at some point, as I have already mentioned one, as I already kind of messaged one about what is the Claudio Ranieri chant, and get behind the man. We need to make sure the Vic is a fortress, right? Because that's where we're going to get the majority of our points this season, for me anyway. And I feel like we have to prioritise that a bit.
Sam, Shano hit the nail on the head there, but Sam, just I know you've got to shoot off, mate, but your final thoughts, really, not only on Xisco. Actually, first off, final thoughts on Xisco, what he did for Watford, getting us promoted in the Premier League, and how will we remember him as a Watford manager during the Pozzo era, do you think?
Yeah, I don't think we are ever going to remember, when looking back at Xisco Munoz, I don't think you're ever really going to think this sort of first portion of the season. I think it's always going to be what he did for not just the football team, but for us as a football club, as a fan base. I think it was so difficult for us to feel connected to the football club, watching it on Hive Live or on Sky Sports every single week. But there was just something so much about Xisco that he was almost like a Watford fan. And I know he said that in his goodbye message to the fans, which did bring a tear to my eye, admittedly. He did say he was a Watford fan, and I felt like that was a real connection for us as a fan base. And forever, I mean, we're all going to be so grateful to him forever. The way he interacted with the fans on social media at a time where we were distant from the club, of course, he got us promoted, and some of the games that he absolutely masterminded. I look at those 2 Norwich games, the home game and the away game. I look at the Bristol City 6-0. You know, you have the the famous Coventry away game followed by the Bristol City game. It's that sort of thing, and as Shay mentioned earlier, the Birmingham game. It's those games that ultimately have defined Xisco Munoz's time at Watford Football Club. Forever grateful to Xisco. As I said earlier in the show, I think he needs to go away. Probably take some time out of football. I know he's still a young manager, but I reckon he should take out the rest of the season, develop himself tactically, and have a watch of football generally. I'm not saying he doesn't do that, but just needs to develop his tactical nous. And I think he'll come back stronger than ever. And he's always welcome back at Vicarage Road in the 1881.
Absolutely, Sam. I think that Coventry game will always be remembered as the Don Goodman Classico.
The Don Goodman Classic.
Always brought it up, but no.
I will also just say one very quick thing about Xisco, and something that I think has gone under the radar a little bit. Aside from everything that we've spoken about, in a day and age where the last season or two has been disrupted by the pandemic, people have lost loved ones, people have really struggled financially, with like their mental health and everything. The fact that Xisco was still here, still doing a job, he didn't see his family back home in Spain, that has increasingly taken its toll. And I know, he took out a couple of weeks, and it was only a couple of weeks in the summer to go home and see his family and everything, and then he's come back again. Juggling all of that, the pressure of the Premier League, because it is the Premier League, all of that, you can only imagine just what's kind of going through his mind and everything. And, as Sam says, I personally wish him the very, very best of luck, and I hope he goes on to do many, many great things. But I'll only remember the positives with him. He was and he was a very, very likable head coach, and probably one of the most likable that we've had, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was definitely a consensus, I thought, with Watford fans that we all wanted him to do well. But look, it wasn't enough in the end. And Xisco Munoz has left his position as Watford head coach. That's where we're going to wrap it up today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And if you did enjoy it, over 200 of you watching live, so please do leave a like in the comment, leave a like below. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, subscribe to WD18, follow Sam and Shano on socials. You can see the app just there. And we'll be back probably talking about more Watford news. Hopefully, no negative news. We don't want any negative news here on WD18. But look, we'll be talking about Claudio Ranieri when he does.
I'm calling it now, by the way. We are beating Liverpool in 2 weeks' time.
Oh.
Early kickoff, new manager bounce. Vic will be bouncing. We'll need that. Full on. Come on, boys.
You know what, mate? I look, as I said, I think the next 8 games is a bit of a hospital pass for any manager that's coming in.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, look, if we could get behind the team and the performances improve, then the signs are good for the rest of the season. But that's where we're going to wrap it up. Ranieri is official, apparently.
Oh,
Ranieri
really?
is official. Oh, it hasn't. Well, it's official with everyone apart from the club yet. So we'll see.
Fair enough. All right.
Please leave a like on the video, comment down below your thoughts, subscribe to WD18, follow Sam and Shano. And I think the best way to end it is dilly ding, dilly dong. Cheers, guys.